Hi, this is a weird video for me to make. Basically, I wanted to sort of explain my thought process behind Ode to My Bedroom Door and, some interesting details that you might have missed and, how I achieved some things that I did. So this video is going to be an in-depth analysis of a 15-minute shitpost I made throughout the entire month of March. So to begin with, we have part 1, the funny, which is quite literally just the first 4 notes of Cellist 4 at the fastest step size I could in Mixcraft. And literally nothing else to explain about this one. Where it gets really interesting is part 2. I left my chord progression at home. So part 1 was made before I had any actual plan of what I wanted to do with the song. Parts 1 through 4 were made before I had, any written plan of what I wanted to do, but I had a plan with each of them. And then afterwards I decided to, plan out the next parts in advance before I even started making them. So we have here the all the instruments I used in part 2. So, first of all, the drums. Basically, what I did here is I took a 175 BPM almond break sample, and then I put it into FL Studio and put gross beat over it, cycling through every single one of the presets. But the presets aren't, matching with the BPM, and that's because while the sample itself is at 175 BPM, the project that I did, and I can't show you it because I only use the demo version, but the project is at the max BPM 522, which is why everything is so arrhythmic. You can hear it drift out of sync. I have a whole bunch of audio files called the Lazy Breakcore series where I just put the almond break sample through all the gross beat presets at various multiples of 175 BPM, and this was sort of a continuation of that. And it actually cuts out a bit early at the very end because, 522 is not a multiple of 175, so it won't quite match up evenly. So there's a little bit of a cut with the gross beatery, but the drums themselves, in sync. Now let's get on to the chord progression. So I used a random number generator, or rather, actually a random jazz chord generator. And what I did is I took the first few notes of the song Welcome to the Future by TSMB2, which you can see as the root notes, I believe, here. And I used a random number generator for the durations and a random jazz chord generator to build a jazz chord out of that root note. And it was not as chaotic as I wanted it to be, and that's because I realized too late that there was a fatal flaw, and that's basing it off of a melody that makes sense, because it's still all in one key even if I'm switching modes with the jazz chords, which is why it's not as chaotic as I wanted it to be. So what I did is I used another random number generator to basically add a completely random note to the chord, and then I added like a note to the bass as well that's not even remotely related to the chord. That transition specifically bothered me because it sounded way too good. Anyway, now on to the solo. The solo itself is just me making a dumb solo over a stupid chord progression. There are a few things to note here, specifically the lick, which I made very tricky to spot. So if you're not paying attention, you will miss it. There's also a reference to random status updates by Preb. And that's basically it. But there is this part, which is a bunch of notes, an octave and then a semitone apart, spanning across the entire thing. So yeah. So yeah, that's part one, but you may have noticed that there is this muted track here, and that's because of part two. So while part one is going on, I have this track going on with a bunch of delay on it. Hungover is a preset, which basically makes it so that there's a long time between echoes and it takes a long time to decay. And I added some shorter delay effects as well. And the delay works even while the track is muted. So basically, while it's going on, this is just silently building up to part two. FCability sucks. I have another instrument here that also has those same effects. And basically what I did is I took an interval gap that increases by 1 each time it reaches an octave. So this has an interval gap of 3, this one 4, and so on until it reaches like a full octave. And then this. That is Megalovania, but what I did with it specifically is I made it so that every note that comes after a note is moved a semitone higher, and I kept doing that repeatedly. So yeah, that's basically the entire thing. I just, laid on the keyboard, the musical typing, a bunch for this. So that's part 3. And now we have part 4, how to scare away an attacking cellist. It's literally just canon in D. So after that, we get into the parts where I sat down and planned them out in advance. So I wrote a lot of these at work. But yeah, part 5, let's throw bowling shoes at the wall. I'm getting a sore throat from all this talking. Alright, so let's throw bowling shoes at the wall. So in my notes, I wrote that it would be in 1932. I didn't realize that Mixcraft doesn't allow time signatures with a denominator of 32. So I just did 1916 at double the BPM. And I used F sharp because it's one of my favorite keys because it was completely unusable in older tuning systems. So yeah, this is where I started writing lyrics because up until this point the song was not focused on any kind of bedroom door. So I wrote some lyrics about trying to find your bedroom door and throwing bowling shoes at the wall in order to escape your room in order to find it. Basic chord progression, we have a neat guitar. I actually didn't chart these notes, but it's a weird thing because 1932 sounds almost like 3/4 or 3/8 or something. It's just one off. So I was trying to make it not sound like it, but it is absolutely just 3/4 with a little extra wiggle moment. And that's the main part. It's just a simple chord progression with a little semitone thrown in there, chromatic stuff. And then there's this jazz guitar. And then I wrote here 27 hertz slams for a G7 add 9 chord on every instrument used in this part of the song. And that's exactly what it is. And I used a notes per second calculator to calculate what 27 notes per second would be. And it is 30-second notes at 202.5 BPM. Then back for another verse. And then I added this part, which is just my notes say, every track mutes except for a recording of the Inferno guitar sound playing an F 2/5 sharp for 6.5 seconds. I actually changed it so that it's not an F because it's too close to the F sharp key, but I forget what note it is, but it is, you can see. I learned that my DAW's pitch adjustment can do microtones, 0.4 semitones as a 2/5 sharp. And I just love putting microtones where they shouldn't belong. Next up, we have Where Is My Door Part 2, the second part to Where Is My Door. If you're not aware already, Where Is My Door is a song I made as part of the Jan Mayen EP, and that's where this entire inside joke came from. So, my notes for this just say 1/10 of a second of the original Where Is My Door, and then a random crazy GH song style electric lead solo. Did more math, and figured out that 1/10 of a second is 216 at 300 BPM. I wanted that exactly, because I put it in there as 1/10 of a second, so by God, it's going to be 1/10 of a second. And as you can see, I just literally took a random spot from the middle of Where Is My Door. And then there's this whole shit, which there's nothing to analyze here. It's literally just the crazy GH song, but slightly weirder. Next up, we have part 7, Laundryy. The first part I want to talk about with laundry is this. I need to do my laundry. So what that is me saying I need to do my laundry in reverse, which I then reversed. So if I reverse it again. That's me pronouncing it in reverse. And it obviously sounds weirder and it's not perfect, but it's close enough. So the rest of this song, I literally just wrote a 2-5-1 progression, but every time it's supposed to hit the 1, it's a semitone flat and just goes into the new key. And I made it as sort of a way to annoy jazz musicians. Now that I've already alienated the cellists, the jazz musicians are next, by interfering with their beloved 2-5-1. And honestly, I got used to it so much. Like, it doesn't sound bad to me anymore. Like, if I remove this marker, like, that sounds better, but it's not. This isn't that bad. I don't know, maybe I'm enough of a jazz musician. But yeah, basically, that's all this is. And it just goes down and down. And then the outro is just... Next up is Cranberry Sauce. My notes for this song literally just say, the time signature is that one Salmon Run song. So, it's built on that... It's just that one note that's repeating, and it's just, a goofy song. 15 mini pretzels are contained within this bowl. There used to be 18. 15 mini pretzels. The song that your left ear really enjoys. So yeah, this song, I just wrote the simplest song I could, but made it so that it's entirely in the left ear. And you can actually see all the tracks that I used for this song because they're the only ones that are panned all the way to the left. That's it. There's nothing else to analyze here. But I did make it go right into the Djent breakdown part. So basically, I just made a random Djent breakdown. It was not very hard. I just needed to put some rhythms together, and it sounded decent. I think the drum part there is really underappreciated because you can't really hear it because, you know. My favorite part has to be this 5 over half of 7 polyrhythm. So, you know, this is doing 7 while this is doing 5. And then comes, fuck it, I'm going to Trader Joe's again. And oh boy, there's a lot to analyze here. Alright, so Trader Joe's, first of all, is a sort of spiritual successor to Random Household Object Goes to Sam's Club for some fucking dish soap. Both are about going to stores to get something. Both actually have the exact same main instrumentation. Like, I literally copied these tracks and effects over from the project file for dish soap. They're the same. I just, you know, I needed a different beat, riff, bass line, all that. So I came up with this beat. Basically some blues licks. And then comes the verse. All the verses are just me putting random stuff all over the main backing. So this one, the main part. Then there's this 76 trombones playing the first 3 notes of Also Sprach Zarathustra. I tried to add more of the notes, but it just wouldn't work with the rest of the song. And then there's this, which is me just playing around with pitch on a single note. And the reason it's this synth is because this synth has a lot more range when it comes to pitch bend than other synths. So it goes all over the place, whereas if I did this with, say, Jump Higher, it would sound like that. I wrote the lyrics to this before coming up with the actual beat in 13/8, so the choruses are in rhythm, whereas the verses are just talking, but I couldn't get the rhythm in 13/8, so I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna put the choruses in 4/4, and it's just, you know, a simple blues progression, the 5/4/1 progression. Do you sell mini pretzels in packs of 3? I know how dumb it sounds. I like how good it sounds. So next up, we have this. I don't remember if this was a random number generator or I just placed notes randomly, but I do remember doing this. MIDI editing, humanize, max adjustment. Basically everything here is adjusted completely at random. So whatever it was before, it's completely different now. So yeah, different positions, different velocities. There's a few more notes in here than what's charted because I just couldn't be fucked to chart a lot of the quieter ones. Specifically this one. Like, that is too quiet. Anyway, the bass comes in again, this repeats, and then this part. So it started off as... What I did is I played with the track automation here. So basically, the track volume, you can see the slider moving, and I was originally also going to automate the distortion level, but who cares? Now, verse 3. I wrote in my notes that it's the same length as the other verses, but there's just an awkward silence in the lyrics. So, I had to fill that space somehow. So we got this funky town, but with pitch wheel effects. A bunch of other random songs, like the entry of the Gladiators, the Star Spangled Banner, We Are Number One, and Keytar, my own song. And then there's this. So I learned how to use the pitch wheel to make microtones. So all of this is C, but this is like an eighth tone, quarter tone, 3/8 tone, and then a semitone, which is just C sharp. And I actually accidentally made this specific one 3 notes long instead of 4, which I think adds to the funniness. And then we're back to the sine thing, the sine lead. But to add some more interest, I added a buzzy reverb effect, buzzy delay. And then comes this part, which I use the same rock organ as before. That's just Megalovania in reverse. Then the outro chorus, and then this part at 400 BPM. If you don't recognize that rhythm, I hope it stays that way. This is actually at 400 BPM, which means I had to slow it down a bunch. So there's a large space in between them, even though... And then I made this. So this is fast. And drums are affected by the pitch wheel. So I was able to make a bell that just sounds slightly weird in the pitch. So next up we have this, the hydroelectric power plant implosion, etc. So for this I said in my notes, a fantastically stupid Famitracker solo over a goofy drum beat that features the welcome from Welcome to Mixcraft as a hi-hat of sorts. And the only lyrics are Ich bin Fortnite und du trinkst meine Cola, which is German for I am Fortnite and you drink my cola, which is a combination of the Yippie kid, who is German and is so happy that his parents allowed him to play Fortnite and drink cola, and also the lyrics to Sofa by Frank Zappa, which goes, Ich bin hier and du bist mein Sofa. But anyway, lyrics aside, the backing is literally just, it's so dumb. So this is the stuff without the Welcome to Mixcraft. And Welcome to Mixcraft. It's become an inside joke because there's this sound in a Mixcraft sound library that is literally just
Welcome to Mixcraft.
And I love it so much. So, like I said, I used the welcome from that
Welcome.
as a hi-hat. So the drum beat sounds like this.
Welcome.
So now I'm going to quickly transition over to Famitracker so we can analyze the solo itself. Alright, so here we are in the Famitracker module for the solo. And first I'm going to go over all the instruments I used. So we got square, which is, a square wave. We have whoop. Use with triangle. This is inspired by Jarvis, who uses this a lot to kind of accent notes in their chiptune songs. And what it's doing is 2 notes here, 2 notes here, 1 note here, and then that. We also have fade in, which is exactly what it sounds like. The fact that I waited this long to make a normal instrument should tell you how this solo is going to go. We have this, which I have no idea how this pitch works, but it leads to some interesting effects if I disable this for a second. And then we have this, which is just cycling between all of the duty cycles. And it sounds very hilarious. We have goofy microtone, which I use the pitch to make it slightly out of tune. Noise funny, which I should use with the noise channel actually. It just cycles between the two noise cycles. And we have trills. I don't even remember why this is here, if this is what's happening, but this is basically just turning on and off the volume every tick. And then these two, I don't remember what they do. I think they're just me trying to get a new Famicom disk system instrument, which I couldn't figure out how to do. But yeah. This I made so that I could have a third channel to use the fade in preset with, and even though it's slightly different, I was able to sort of mimic the other two pulse channels with it. But now we're ready to get into the solo itself. I'm gonna try my best to break down what is happening, even though I have no idea how to use FamiTracker. I know how to use it, I just don't know how to explain how I use it. So we got 4 frames here. We start out rather normal. So from here we have the preset. And we have a lot of stuff to cover. Basically, this is just pitch slides. So this is disabling the pitch slide. And then this uses the microtone to make it ever so slightly flat. And then we have the use with triangle preset, playing some more. This, more random stuff, chromatics. We have this. This uses the microtone preset and the normal preset to create a very dissonant thing. I actually tried at first to make them both A, but that actually made it sound good. I instead did G sharp, which is even more dissonant than a regular semitone. Next, the just the rising thing, and that just keeps going up. And then we have this, which I need to explain what happened here. So I was composing this frame by frame, and when you go to a new frame, all the effects reset. So this is an arpeggio effect, so it sounds like this. This is a... That's what it's supposed to sound like, but when you put them together, this I didn't deactivate, so it's still going to arpeggiate these instead of... Which is so hilarious to me, because it was completely unintentional, and I could not for the life of me figure out why it wasn't working when I changed frames. So like if I delete that and then play this again, I could not figure out why it was playing it like that until I realized that I had to disable the arpeggio effect. But I liked this part so much that I kept it in, because, to be honest, this is just hilarious. Anyway, on to the next frame. We have this on the noise funny thing. Some more random noise here. I can't even explain it. You already know. I'm abusing the fact that FamiTracker is so funny to use. And I couldn't not sneak. Megalovania into there. So then I outlined a C major triad, and that's the only reason I needed the Famicom disk system, because you can't play 3 pulse notes at the same time without it. I just used this on every single channel except the Famicom disk system. And that's the entire solo. So I just exported that as an audio and then put it into the Mixcraft project. Alright, so I'm recording this part first because there's a lot of references in it and I'd like to get it out of the way first, but it feels so weird to do it without an intro. But anyway, here we are, the last 2 parts. Part 12.5, Let's Play 8-Ball, and yes, this is every single Citrus preset at once. You can see I had to split it up into 3 parts. This is because it literally would not let me put any more preset plugins on one pattern. So I had to split it into 3 audio files. And it was chugging hard in FL Studio when I tried to render this. That's actually the first time I've listened to all of them individually. I didn't realize how different they sounded from each other. Anyway, now on to the actual final part. Very large explosion. I have some good news. I have found my bedroom door. In my notes for this part, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I wrote the lyrics down first, and then I sort of wrote the music to go around it. So the notes for the first part just say 808 trap backing, because I didn't really know what else I could do with the lyrics. So yeah, it fades in like this because, you know, I wanted these audio files to play out in full. And then I just came up with a random beat to just be a backing for the absurd lyrics. I have some good news. I have found my bedroom door. Then there's this part in which I supposedly eat the 18 mini pretzels. My notes for this literally just say silence followed by 18 dull thuds, which I achieved by dropping a dictionary on the floor 18 times from a really distant mic. Anyway, it comes back after that. This is in 5/8 because I really wanted it to cut off at a random point. And this is where the fun begins. As you can tell, the tempo never changes until like the very end. This entire section, I wrote in my notes, the musical representation of an explosion. I included this reference to Zeppy Synth Battle. And then I wrote this section before I had any idea what to do with the rest of it. So everything after this point I did methodically, and this was just random. So the first thing you may notice is the weird time signatures. What I did was I used 2 random number generators, one from 2 to 32, which is as much as, you know, Mixcraft allows for a time signature, and one from 1 to 4, which I used for the denominator by taking 2 to the power of that number. So basically 1 means 2, 2 means 4, that sort of thing. And from that, I got a whole bunch of randomly generated time signatures, and I kept randomly generating them until I got a repeat, which happened to be 12/8. So you can see there's 2 12/8s here. What I did for this whole section is I came up with the drums first, and then kind of figured it out from there. So this was sort of the first thing I had. I had no idea what else to do. I mean, it's a long measure, I gotta fill it somehow. And then this part, more just random stuff. This was a very short measure, so what I did is I just used metronome bells and clicks to kind of fill it, and it's very fast. I really like it when things go fast. This part, besides just being a random break part, was inspired by a specific chiptune song that had a similar pattern in it. And then this is all blast beats. And that's the two different snare sounds. Then comes this part, and as you can see, I was basically pulling shit out of my ass here. So that's just a regular drum beat with every single other sound being played down the line here. And then the longest measure in the entire thing, 27/2. So I just decided to do random polyrhythms. So we got the hat playing every 3/16 notes. We got the snare drum playing every 5, and the kick drum playing every 4, and it just makes a really weird polyrhythm. And I did that until I got back to the beat frequency, which is when all 3 play together, but that wasn't enough to fill the whole measure, so I made a bunch of other weird polyrhythms, which is this. And that, I believe, was me in quintuplet swing. I'm not entirely sure. And then this is a shuffle, but it's in the wrong tempo, and we'll get to why it's in the wrong tempo later. This is just a basic drum beat, but okay, so this is what I like to call a polytempo, which is basically when you use an extended polyrhythm to simulate 2 different tempos playing at once. So if I put the metronome on here, it sounds like this. So that's basically an extended 5/4-ish polyrhythm, but because the grouping of the beats in the 5 makes it still sound like 4, that makes it, wonky to listen to. Next came this part, which is just a bunch of fast drum fills. This is a weird 7/8 beat I made that just gets faster every time. And then this part. I made this drum beat not having a plan for what else I would put in it. And I just, I wanted to make a Latin beat for whatever reason. I just found it somewhat hilarious. And then that is 7/15, I believe. And keep in mind, I did not do anything else before making the entire drum section. So this was all without any plan as to what the guitar or bass would be doing. Another fill. That's just every cymbal I could find in this standard kit. And then this is as fast as Mixcraft would let me place notes, and as you can see, the audio has been lowered very much. So if I delete these points, volume warning, and then yes, that is Megalovania on a tom-tom, on multiple tom-toms actually. And then, just like in Trader Joe's, the Trader Joe's part, I reversed it. Pedal hi-hat, and then I abused the fact that open hi-hats will be stopped when you place a pedal hi-hat note next to it. So it just sounds like this. Next up, we got some sweeps. And yeah, this part. This was the only time I actually placed guitar notes before finishing the drums, because this is exactly what I wanted for the guitar part as well. So yes, it does say, "Your mother sexed me in bed!" Exclamation point. Alright, so after that, we have this part. So first of all, we got a polyrhythm going on with the two kick drums. And all this tom garbage, I randomly generated a number from 1 to 6, and whichever tom it was, I just placed it. So this is all randomly generated. Then we have this. This is heptuplets polytempo. And then I got a 4/4 measure. Keep in mind this is all randomly generated, so 4/4 is like one of various different possibilities. And I took that opportunity like a champ and just made a normal drum beat. Then I made a really fast 12/8 piece. And then I took advantage of the fact that, yes, drums are affected by pitch. And then after this repeat measure, I went back to 4/4. And then this, 2/16 measure of 400 BPM, which is literally as short a measure as it gets. And then back to 4/4 for a timbali solo. I'll get to the outro later. But that was only the drum part. So next, I had no idea what I wanted to do, so I just recorded myself doing this. That is the wrong synth, but you get the idea. I just recorded myself doing this on this track, and I believe this is where I finally decided to actually make a dumb Latin-inspired thing, not just from the drums. So, it's very hard to hear, but this synth is actually doing... So yeah, basically everything else is just random garbage. So then I did the guitar. Yeah, this is where the references begin. So I had no idea the name of this song. I just figured it out because I had heard it before. This is where I used a lot of polytempos because the song wouldn't be recognizable at 180 BPM. So I just kind of slowed it down artificially with polyrhythms if I put the metronome on. You can see that it's actually in groups of 3 instead of groups of 2. Then came this part, which is just chromatic garbage. And then I used a jazz guitar here because it's a nice drum beat, so I thought I put a nice jazz guitar here. Then comes the chaotic part. This part was also made with a random number generator. That's, a theme with this song. So basically what I did is I randomly generated a duration in 16th notes for each note in the scale from 1 to 8, I believe, 1 to 9, I think. I repeated that twice, and then it was too short for another repetition, so I did a second one going up, this time from 1 to 5 instead of 1 to 9, so it would take shorter. Next is the Uber Juice reference. Then comes this part. Just some fast strumming. I enjoy putting one note that's different in a strumming pattern because it's funny. Then comes this part, which kind of leads into the Latin section. I didn't actually chart that slide because, to be honest, I forgot it existed, but it's here. We got a bunch of different stuff from the Latin section because, honestly, it's just funny. This is my favorite part of the song because it's just so out of left field and it's so hilarious. So next up is this. This, stupid pattern that I love because it sounds like penis music. This, I have a bunch of just random nonsense here. Just stacking dissonant intervals over each other. This part, which is, again, the maximum step size Mixcraft allows. And then I had to dig deep to remember exactly what the melody looked like in, MIDI form, but, I pulled it off. And then, yes, not only are there 2 Toho songs in here, but there is Smoke on the Water. Anyway, yeah, this is the drum part from before, just in guitar form. And then... Yes, I was running out of ideas here. I had no idea what to do. I just did a bunch of random shit. I actually alternate between the diminished scale and the whole tone scale here. And then I believe this is... I think this is Locrian. I'm not sure. Anyway, but you probably already heard this part, which I did by I just automated between left and right really quickly. And then I did the same with the volume, but instead of just the guitar track, it's on the master track. Then comes this part, which I'll get to the sound effects later, but that's just random notes to have something on the guitar to play while the sound effects are going on. Then comes the 2 highest notes and the 2 lowest notes that actually make a sound. I love juxtaposition. I don't know why this is here. And then there's more pitch bend shenanigans. There's actually different notes here, as if you could tell from the pitch bend. And then there's this part, which just gets faster every, 2 or 4 beats. I wish I could go faster to have, a fractal thing, but it was not meant to be. And then there's this neat chord, which is 2 major sevenths, both a whole step apart, and then a minor second smack dab in the middle. Anyway, we have this. I found the telephone MIDI keyboard synth thing, so I decided to use that. And you can't really hear it well in the song because everything is so chaotic, but this is a cell phone vibrating. Mixcraft has a very extensive sound library. And, yes, I cut it off so it sounds like, you're picking up the phone. And then this is just named Screaming Man. And I just found it so hilarious because, he's so into it. And it's in the right ear, and it's super quiet, so I had to boost the audio way up. but it's just so stupidly funny. Next we have the bass, which is just as dumb. So first and foremost, I did put distortion on it and a compressor. I had no idea what else to do here because, you know, the first measure is just so cobbled together already. Then we have this, which uses different note lengths to do the same simple pattern. And then there's this part. I don't know why, but it's just so hilarious how high it is. So I tried to do a pitch bend, but it just wouldn't, and I have no idea why. It would work fine when I played it like this, but when I played it in the song, it just wouldn't work. So I had to settle for just two notes. Next is this. I just looped it because I couldn't be bothered copying and pasting it. And then there's this, which, because this is the absolute chaos that comes after it, I decided to, you know, put a metronome in to warn you. Then came this part, which, what more can I say? It's another stupid-ass polyrhythm. Next is this, which is the other part to the Uber Juice reference. Then there's this part, which is going up 6 and then down 2. And that leads right into the Latin section. Oh, and all these distorted bass things with nothing in them here, that's because I was trying to add so many tempo markers past the end of any actual MIDI regions that it just wouldn't let me scroll, so I had to place empty MIDI regions. So that's why you can see them on like particularly long measures. But anyway, I just picked a random note for these, and then specifically I used math to add quarter tones. That's a nice chord. That is, you know, never gonna give you up to compliment Take On Me. And then you already heard the Toho reference. This is Morse code for I'm Fucker Newton. There is a lot of dashes in a row here, which I find funny. It kind of winds down because, you know, I just have long notes. And then there's this. So now that that's all explained, we have the outro. I'm going to try and explain these chords one by one. As you can see, there's just a lot of semitones next to each other. That sounds pleasant. The distorted bass. That's a G7 over a C4. And then there's the jump higher lead. This is just a stack of tritones and then semitones below them. So yeah, that's pleasant. And then you may have noticed that this is a reference to a song title that I'm not even going to try to pronounce. It's by Preb. And the reason I decided to end it with this specific reference is just because everything exploded, and this just sounds like the aftermath to an apocalyptic event to me. So yeah, that's a Preb song. I'll show the title on screen right now. But yeah, that's really everything that this song has to offer, and I'll record everything else after this because, like I said, this is the first part I'm recording. So yeah, this is the entire project file. It's wildly unorganized. So that's it. Thanks for watching. It feels weird to do an outro when I have so much more to record, but thank you for watching. Thank you for enjoying this stupid song I made that I took way too much effort with for April Fool's Day shit post.